unprecedented investment to support this, coming out of things like the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as significant investments that the legislature is making to support building decarbonization. With that, again, just really looking forward to working with this group as we all, bring different perspectives, but work together constructively to, look for agreement on over the next year what the electric ready and solar ready codes should be. And with that, I will pass it on to Director Rick Garcia from the Department of Local Affairs to make some comments.
Thank you, Will. Good afternoon, everyone, and congratulations, members of the Energy Code Advisory Board. Glad to see everyone who's on the call today, our first inaugural meeting. As Will indicated, I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. We had a role in identifying and appointing about half of the membership to the new Energy Code Board. And we certainly are very pleased to be part of this undertaking. And no surprise that the Department of Local Affairs has a strong relationship established with local governments throughout the state, counties, as well as cities, special districts, and we have for a long time. So again, no big surprise that we should be connected to this work as we go forward. I will say that DOLA, through our work over the last 2 to 3 years, has already embarked on some of the new energy economy opportunities by providing renewable energy planning grants, as well as capital construction grants for renewable projects in many local governments throughout the state. You might say, well, that's probably happening on in the northern Colorado Front Range of our state. Some of that is, but certainly some of it is actually occurring in places that maybe many of you would not find usual suspects. Places like Dolores, Colorado, places like Norwood, Colorado, places like Grand Junction, that local governments have made application to find ways to start integrating alternative energy opportunities into their local grid system, turning, in many cases, complete in total assets of local or county governments into renewable sources. Our department also has had a long-standing role over the last several years in helping many local governments make application to create net zero affordable housing, multifamily projects around the state. We've made sizable grants to assist in the transformation of those kinds of projects. So we have a role to play, and we want to continue to be a proactive advocate for local governments in ensuring that we meet the statutory expectations of the House Bill 1362. We made special attempts to ensure that we would strike some reasonable balance in the selection of appointments throughout the state. Yes, there's members of official building departments, but there's also elected officials and other housing developers, both nonprofit and for-profit, for sale as well as rental housing developers. A good mix of those individuals from throughout the state. We certainly need and want your perspectives. This is a historic opportunity to start moving in a direction that clearly the law is asking us to do, and we certainly want to be as forthright as we can in understanding all the particular expectations that smaller towns and cities and local governments have as we embark on looking at these new energy code opportunities. So I want to say that Department of Local Affairs is here to hopefully work directly and collaborate and cooperate, and hopefully we'll get that reciprocated as we move down this historic path in trying to get these energy codes implemented as the legislation has directed us to do. In closing, I will mention that my alternate to this board is a DOLA deputy in our Division of Housing, Malik Miskell, who has been recently involved with our Division of Housing as the new deputy director, but previously Mo has been involved with DOLA from many years in working in our modular manufacturing inspection division. So he comes with a great deal of background and understanding of how construction, particularly on the housing side, works. So I did want to let everybody know that when I'm not available, Mo will be representing my position as the DOLA executive director. So with that, again, congratulations on your appointment. We look forward to working with you and moving down this historic path. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Rick. Appreciate both your comments and Will's. And just a couple of updates. We are live now, so apologies to anyone who is watching on YouTube. We did get that worked out, and we'll make sure we have that fixed from the beginning for next time. And I would like to give a small update too for the agenda. The period from 2:15 to 2:25, where we were going to elect officers to the board. We are going to skip that particular section of the agenda this time and move that to our second meeting. So we will be doing that on our next meeting. So next we will move into introduction of each of the board members. So we would love it if each of you would give us just a 2 or 3 minute introduction of yourself, where you are coming from, what board seat you hold, and any other information you'd like to share. So we will go ahead, and I guess I'll start calling on people based on the list that I have. So why don't we go ahead and get started with Kevin. Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks. I'm Kevin Hieronymus. I'm a principal with Schurzak and Rockmore Architects in Denver. We're about a 60-person firm that focuses on urban infill mixed-use projects, hospitality, and some higher education work. And I'm on the architect role of the board at the suggestion and encouragement of my colleagues at AIA Colorado. So I have a history with AIA Colorado leadership through there with our Committee on the Environment back 10, 15 years ago. Served as leadership for Colorado as president of AIA Colorado. And that kind of became the the gateway drug to government affairs. So I've been involved in government affairs and have worked on several of the bills that, including 1262, and working with Senator Hansen when he was Representative Hansen in my district in Denver. So I'm really looking forward to participating in this. We're just wrapping up Denver's efforts to adjust, and I see familiar faces from that effort to adopt revisions to chapters 4 and 7 of the IBC and IECC to formulate for Denver's 2022 code. So I'm carrying right along with that effort. Looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And next we will go to Brad.
Hi, thanks, Adam. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brad Smith. I work for the City of Fort Collins. My primary role is project manager for all things related to building energy code with the city. I've kind of taken a circuitous path to this role, but have certainly gotten my boots dirty, so to speak, in a number of different efficiency roles throughout my career, really starting about 14 years ago in the formation of a solar and energy efficiency company with a business partner that led to subcontracts with utilities, working utility efficiency programs, doing utility analysis, and doing in-home assessments. That eventually led to my coming on board with a third-party firm, a large firm in Colorado that does a lot of work with utility programs, but primarily in the new construction sector. So did a lot of modeling of homes, and then eventually did a lot of work in the multifamily front of buildings. I was the multifamily lead with this company. I had, during this time, several, probably years worth of relationships with city of Fort Collins. So it was an easy transition when they created this position. Initially, this position was created as sort of an energy code compliance position. I very much say that it is still that. I'm sure many of you are aware, it's one thing to write code, it's another thing to make sure that we're getting compliance to code. So I do believe that it's very important, and there's a lot of work to be done on that front. But a lot of my work with the city is both on the utility side and on the building services side. So I kind of run back and forth between two departments. So building services side is working with the entire building community, including staff, in enforcement, education, outreach, whatever it takes. On the utility side, it's a lot of policy. So I do have a big hand in writing and amending our building energy code, and what we adopt in the future is a big part of my role. I'm excited to be a part of this because of the diversity of this board. I certainly work within the city of Fort Collins, and we have specific climate goals. So it's nice to see that, you know, on a statewide effort to look at all of the things that need to be taken into account. So I'm excited to work with this entire group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad. And next we'll go to Mary.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Because my video is frozen, unfortunately. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, my video, I could say it's snowing here in Glenwood Springs, so it's only appropriate that my video is not working. It's frozen, so I will get that fixed next time. Thank you for this honor of being on this board. I'm really excited. My name is Mary Weiner, and I'm with Holy Cross Energy, which we're named after the 14,000-foot peak, Mount Holy Cross. So we're a rural electric co-op in the Western Slope. So we provide electricity only for a lot of the Vail Valley, a lot of the Roaring Fork Valley, which is Glenwood to Aspen, and then down to Parachute. So we're in climate zone 5, 6, and 7. And obviously being in the resort areas, we have a lot of challenges with the large homes and how we're going to try to electrify them. I have been the energy efficiency program administrator for the last 10 years. And so I have created all the energy efficiency rebates. And then I've done what we have for electrification. I also have created those rebates and implemented those, which have been pretty darn successful. So we're really excited to see what the next step is with the state and how we can help contribute to that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And now we'll go to Kristen.
Hi, Kristen Tedonio. I'm the energy efficiency rep on the board. I started my career 20 years ago working for the Energy Star for new home construction program. Did a stint managing the Energy Star appliance program, then transitioned to the U.S. Department of Energy, where I worked in the commercial buildings and better buildings programs with our national labs and the nation's leading retailers, commercial real estate groups and whatnot. Since moving to Colorado in 2014, I've moved up to Graham County, so a very cold climate zone, where I also serve on the board of directors of a rural electric cooperative, and recently during the pandemic built a solar decathlon house with CU Boulder. So got a bit of hands-on experience through that too. So pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to getting to know you all.
Thank you, Kristen. And we will go to Kim now.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be a part of this board. I am the environmental or sustainability group representative. I work with Eco Action Partners, which is a sustainability nonprofit organization located in Telluride, Colorado. We serve our region across San Miguel Power Association territory with pretty much anything sustainability related, but we are primarily focused on energy and waste reduction programs, helping people with energy efficiency, renewable energy, zero waste initiatives, etc. I have been with the organization since I moved here in 2006, so quite a long time. Actually, they started the organization in 2007. I was just waiting for the first director to get hired before I called her up and said, "Can I come help you yet?" So it's been a long journey so far, and I'm still very much enjoying it. I have a background in mechanical engineering. focusing on energy efficiency and renewable energy. I have a business that I also run, doing HERS ratings, energy efficiency consultation across this region, in addition to my work with Eco Action Partners. I have a lot of experience with supporting this region with building energy codes. One of my first tasks when I joined the organization was to work with the building departments to update their codes to the 2009 IECC, but also to go beyond that. So we studied quite a few codes from across the state and the nation to adopt something that would work for our local climate and initiatives here. And I continue that work now with the building departments. I guess just a few other things that I've been working on with the organization. With the 2009 ARA stimulus funds, my position expanded quite a bit. I ran energy efficiency and renewable energy grant programs, and then also formed the Sneffels Energy Board, which is our regional board across Uray and San Miguel counties, which initiated our first climate action plan. We've just recently updated our climate action plan, and we've been doing greenhouse gas inventory tracking since that time. So that's been a lot of my primary efforts with across the region, working with elected officials, staff members at all the governments, as well as we have a very strong relationship with our local electric co-op, SMPA. One of the things that I was involved in for the state a couple of years ago was a subgroup for CC4CA that helped to guide the development of the greenhouse gas roadmap for the CEO. So I think with that, that's about the bit of it that's relevant, and I really appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. And now we will go to Elizabeth.
Hey everyone, I'm Elizabeth Gilmore. I'm the president of Energetics Consulting Engineers, and I am your representative as a professional engineer with experience working on building systems, which is a mouthful. I'm a licensed architectural engineer, graduated from CU Boulder, go Buffs, and my company actually does energy consulting and energy modeling for commercial buildings, multifamily, low rise, mid rise. We do a little bit of everything, even starting to dip our toes into single family and IRC type of projects. Our primary business though is energy modeling consulting. So that does come with a deep knowledge of building codes, and sometimes not where you expect your life to turn, but very nerdy on codes these days. I did join, I see several familiar faces, joined the folks on Denver's latest code adoption cycle, and I was also on the 2019 Denver Building Code committee there. So I really enjoy working with all the experts that I see here. I'm really excited to collaborate with you all. We have a lot of experience working with, because we work with a lot of utility rebate programs with Excel and Fort Collins. We have a lot of relationships with lots of engineers and design teams around town. So looking forward to just providing the voice and sharing the insight of lots of different projects and project types. Most of our work is in Colorado. I'd say the majority of it is on the Front Range, but we do still work all around Colorado and into some surrounding states. So we use the energy models to help quantify the energy savings, just to help people build the best buildings that their budget allows, and make sure that when we're talking about requiring things in the code, that our requirements are really impactful, and to help folks quantify that and understand the impacts of what we want to encourage. So great to see you all.
Go to Jason. Jason, you are still muted.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, so Jason McMillan, Mayor Pro Tem here in Crested Butte, and the Rural Municipality Rep, representing Crested Butte because I've participated in a number of carbon reduction efforts and strategic planning for the town, starting with our climate action plan in 2019, so kind of following some similar path that Colorado has. And we identified commercial and residential buildings as the largest sources of phase 1 and 2 emissions in our town. I am also on the town's rep for CC4CA. And so when we were updating our building codes this year, we were eager to find ways to reduce carbon emissions through our building code. And so we included requirements for EV ready, zero energy ready, and all electric, not including commercial kitchens. As far as my background, I was in education for 15 years before getting my MA in environmental management. I've been in sustainable manufacturing, helped see a few people from Delta, Holy Cross, where we work together. I helped Chris Kasky start Delta Brick and Climate Company. And that got me thinking more about embodied carbon in addition to operational carbon. And yeah, also involved in equitable solar solutions here in Gunnison. So yeah, looking forward to doing this important work with you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. That will take us to Carolyn.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Carolyn Elam. I'm a Sustainability Senior Manager for the City of Boulder. And on the Energy Code Board, I serve in the role of solar power expert. I very much appreciate the opportunity to work with you all. I am bringing our experience. The City of Boulder has had solar access requirements, solar ready requirements, net zero requirements for residential. So we have quite a bit of experience of what has worked well or what has not. We've run into challenges, I think, in implementing solar that I look forward to bringing to the board so we can all be successful. I do bring a background in solar energy, having previously led programs for the U.S. Department of Energy. And so with that, I will pass back to you, Adam.
Thank you, Carolyn. And now we'll go to Ron.
Hello, Ron Flax. I work for Boulder County. I'm the Deputy Director for Community Planning and Permitting, as well as the Chief Building Official for the county. I'm serving in the role of an urban county representative on this committee. My background in this field really started quite a while ago, working as a production home builder for a number of years, and then I went back to school, got a degree in architecture, worked for a number of years doing architecture, design, build projects, building high performance homes. From there, I went on to become really focused on the energy rating and building science work that I had been doing with that architecture firm, and then I joined the county. So most of my background has really been focused on residential energy efficiency, but in my role in Boulder County, we obviously deal with both residential and commercial projects, and I'm pleased to be part of this committee and see what we can do to move the ball along and bring some greater alignment across jurisdictions within the state of Colorado. So exciting stuff.
Thank you, Ron. And now we will go to Aaron.
Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Martinez. I'm representing the chair for affordable for rent housing. And a little bit about me. I think it was Brad who mentioned, a circuitous route and finding, where I'm at today. And I think probably a lot of people can identify. I grew up sort of in the construction industry and worked my way through college on a completely unrelated degree, but worked my way through college framing houses in Texas, and was around the construction industry for some time, and then kind of switched over to the nonprofit sector, focused on at first youth development, but then eventually energy efficiency in low-income neighborhoods. I worked for a long time around and with the Weatherization Assistance Program. It's a federal program focused on energy efficiency and now renewable energy in residential homes, and actually worked with Boulder County for some time, and then also a large nonprofit here in Denver. And now I'm with Urban Land Conservancy, and we are a nonprofit real estate and development company here in Denver that focuses on affordable real estate and preserving real estate and preventing displacement in vulnerable neighborhoods. So that includes affordable for rent housing. It also includes affordable office space for nonprofits. And I've been lucky enough to be a part of a lot of efforts here in Denver, including the Energize Denver Task Force. I'm a co-chair of the Building and Homes Committee for the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and really just see myself as sort of a jack of all trades and not really an expert in any one, but definitely focus on impacts to vulnerable communities and neighborhoods, and unintended consequences of some of this work, while also pushing to make efficiency, health, and just better buildings accessible for folks who wouldn't otherwise have that access. So nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Aaron. And then we will go to Lauren.
Thanks, Adam. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren DeBell, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with Elevation Community Land Trust. I am here as the representative for Affordable for Sale Housing Builder. So Elevation is a statewide nonprofit, and we partner with communities to really create permanently affordable home ownership opportunities for households at and below, really focusing on at and below 80% of the area median income. Currently, we're in 12 municipalities across Colorado, including Denver, Aurora, Western Slope. We've just started bringing some homes online in Delta, and we've got about 100 homes coming online here in Fort Collins. I am a resident of Larimer County. And yeah, I guess just a little more, I really look forward to learning from you all. I don't have a deep expertise, but certainly a strong interest in learning more about sustainability, and I think really bringing a perspective of how that impacts homeowners and trying to create more equitable communities. So just bringing that perspective. Currently, Elevation, we have about 200 homeowners, everything from studio condos to 4-bedroom single-family homes. And I'm excited to be working on some larger master plan communities across Colorado that have the opportunity to be net zero or regenerative. And so we do everything from purchasing existing homes and rehabbing them, all the way to partnering with developers to create new construction condominiums and townhomes. So looking forward to being part of this process.
Thank you, Lauren. We'll go to Cody next.
Morning, all. My name is Cody Davis. I'm from Mesa County. I guess I'm your building operations expert. I own a residential production building and development company here in Grand Junction. So I guess I'm the guy that knows how to swing the hammer. I'll agree with Mr. Martinez. I'm kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. Started out framing houses, laying concrete, roofing, all that stuff. So I guess that's my expertise, is from the ground up and actually putting the stuff together. Currently, I'm also an elected official. I'm a Mesa County Commissioner. I've been the president of the Housing and Building Association of Western Colorado, president of the Grand Valley Drainage District, which we deal with environmental concerns, ag, seep, and return flow, stormwater back to the Colorado River. So I'm excited to be on this board and get to work with you fine people.
Thank you, Cody. And next we'll go to Zach. Zach here.
Hi, my name is Zach Esquivel, and I've been chosen to work as a representative of on the mechanical trade representative. I've been a licensed electrician for 21 years and worked in the industry for 25, 4 of it as going through an apprenticeship. I've worked on renewable energy projects, built them, worked on them, facilitated them, and solar projects over the last 10 years. And I am I currently represent the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. And now we will go to Sean.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Wyatt. I'm business manager for Plumbers Local 3 here in Denver. Was also chosen to be the mechanical trade representative with labor organization membership. So I've been in the plumbing field for 23 years now, involved heavily in commercial construction, and been in this position at the local union for the last 6 years. So I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Hey, Adam, you're on mute.
Well, that's probably why you can't hear me. We will go to Thomas next.
Hi, I'm Tom Reed. I'm here representing mechanical, electrical, and plumbing services contractors and Rocky Mountain Mechanical Association, trade associations in general. I've got a mechanical engineering degree. I started in the energy world in college for a DOE program called the Industrial Assessment Center, where we did energy audits of small and medium-sized factories, and I kind of cut my teeth before I graduated in that world. Got out of school, worked for a few years in the defense industry, doing some satellite design. Decided I wanted to get back into the energy world. So I got back in on the performance assurance side, working for a couple energy services contractors, doing performance contracting. Pretty quickly moved into project development as an energy engineer, and I did that for 7-8 years full time. Company I work for now, I worked for them for 4 or 5 years doing project development, energy projects, energy modeling, financial modeling, and moved into a sales role where I still do that and also sell projects. Pretty passionate about the retrofit world. Almost all my experiences in existing buildings, and making projects work within existing constraints, and playing nice with the energy code and other codes, and hopefully playing very nice with the energy code. I enjoy what I do. I'm passionate about it. I'm looking forward to being a member of the board and getting to know you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom. And now we'll go to Don.
Good afternoon. My name is Don Supis. I'm Delta County Commissioner. I am representing the small rural community, rural county spot on the board. In my real job, I have a heating and cooling company, 30 years of experience in the heating and cooling trades and refrigeration trades. So hoping to bring the small county voice and the expertise of my field to this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We'll go to Andrew next.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for permitting me to join the board and to assist everybody along this path. I have about 38 years of experience now under multiple codes across the country, dating back to the ICBO codes, the BOCA codes, the Southern Building Codes. I've operated in both design and construction capacities. I've now been with Richmond American Homes 27 years, almost exclusively focused now on residential design. I hold multiple degrees, multiple certifications and licenses, most of which I don't speak about much. I just work. I am the representative for large statewide production. I very much enjoy this role, enjoy this company, and have enjoyed operating in this state. I have a lot of experience with many persons at the DOE, EPA, many very experienced professionals across the country, and do very much look forward to assisting the group as we go forward down this path. Please, anything I can answer for anybody?
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. And last but certainly not least, we will go to Tim.
Yes, thank you very much, Adam and all. Pleasure to meet everybody. I know a few, but this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to have been selected to this group. Is really looking forward to this. My background is I got a degree back in the mid 70s from CU in psychology, which taught me very well to become a carpenter, which I did. Started a construction company, and we use the psychology all the time with that. And but in reality, then we became a construction company. I went to work for Boulder County for a couple of years as a plans analyst. Then I moved to Louisville for about 8 years. And I've been presently with the city and county of Broomfield for 22 years, the building official for the last 12. So we're currently getting ready to take the 21 code package, including the energy code, to our council for mid-April. And then we're following up with some sustainability meetings with some city council members and community to do strengthening amendments. So this is going to be very helpful with what we go through for putting together what we're doing at the state level for our purposes with the city and county. Just recently, the city council passed an EV ready, so we do have that. Have not really enforced it because it's just for new developments, but we'll see how that all starts working out through the planning and building reviews. I've worked many years with Mo on the Division of Housing Technical Advisory Committee, so got that experience with the modular home. Primarily, my focus was to help with the code updates at the times. I'm looking forward to being on that again with this next cycle for the tiny home. So really looking forward to seeing state regulations for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Been very involved with the Colorado chapter co-change committee. I was the co-chair for a long time, but very active with that. And on the national level, I've been on, I think, 10 different national co-change committees, primarily between the IR residential code and the building code. And always enjoy working with that process. Really looking forward to this. Pleasure meeting everybody, and let's go have some fun.
Thank you, Tim. And I will just briefly introduce all of the CEO staff you might also be dealing with periodically throughout this. So we have Keith Hay on the phone, who's our Senior Director of Policy. We have Chris Piper, who I think most or all of you know, who is our legislative wizard, is our liaison between us and the state legislature. And then from the AG's office, we have David Banis with us, who is our lead counsel on this board. And then we have Casey Higgerson, who is paralegal with the AG's office. I think that's everyone who's on the call. And then Will or Rick, did you want to make any additional introductions of yourselves or comments before we move on?
Yeah. Hey, Adam. Yeah, let me put Mo on the spot since a few folks have referenced him and I did earlier. Just a quick introduction. Mo, go ahead and a little bit about your background and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Excuse me. My name is Mo Miskell. I'm the Deputy Division Director for the Division of Housing for Department of Local Affairs. Prior to my role in this position, I was actually the Director of the Office of Regulatory Oversight, which actually has two programs, one which Tim has mentioned and also Rick, what we refer to as the Building Codes and Standards section. For the most part, it regulates all the modular installation and construction in the state of Colorado, statewide program. The other program is our Mobile Home Oversight Program, which regulates the dispute that occurs, as you can imagine, between landlords of parks, mobile home parks, and homeowners of mobile homes situated in those parks. Since one party owns the real estate or the assets sitting on land that is not owned by them, you can imagine there's some disputes that occur that this program resolves. So that was my former role. Excited to work with you guys and bring the experience of working with the Technical Advisory Committee that Tim mentioned, that advises our state housing board on the building codes it should adopt that regulates modular construction. And of course, representing Division of Housing and interacting with you guys when Rick Garcia is not available to do so. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mo. I'm not sure if there's other DOLA or local government folks on the call, but didn't want to overlook you. So if you are on the call, just quickly unmute and introduce yourselves.
Andy Hale, I work for the Department of Local Affairs, and I am just listening in and supporting Rick and Mo as needed.
Thanks, Andy. Anyone else? Okay, back to you, Adam.
Great, thank you, Rick. I guess I realize I also did not really take any time to introduce myself either, so just a little background on me. I've talked with you all. That's nice to meet you all. Adam Berry, I just recently joined the Energy Office about a month ago. I am the office's lead on all things building codes. So I spent the last 4 years in Washington, D.C. working on building codes and energy efficiency policy in the U.S. Senate at the federal level. So just really excited to be here with you all and get to do this important work with all of you. So next we will move on to discuss the bylaws for the board. I sent all of those to you all last week. I believe it was on Wednesday. And so hopefully you each had an opportunity to at least glance at those and see kind of what we will be discussing. We're going to have David Banis, our lead counsel, go over, just kind of walk through it just at a high level. You have the opportunity to ask questions, and if you have any concerns or comments or would like to see any changes, please feel free to make those suggestions. I think, David, what we can do is we can just go through each section and then stop for questions or comments if anyone has any. Does that sound okay?
I think that sounds great. Does that work for everyone? Great. Thanks for having me here. Adam, do you want to share your screen?
Yes. Okay. Can everyone see that?
I can see it.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So again, thanks for having me here. I'm David Banis with the Attorney General's office. And I've drafted these bylaws sort of based on bylaws that I've drafted before for other organizations, and also the specific statute in question here, which is more prescriptive than many foundational statutes that I've worked with before. So there's a lot of stuff from the statute in here too that we can talk about. As Adam said, maybe as we scroll through it, if you've got some comments or you want to suggest changes or you have questions, let's do it as we go. And I think the goal would be when we get to the end, we've got a document that we're all happy with that you can all vote on. So I think we're going to try to breeze through this as quickly as possible. Article 1, really straightforward. The name and purpose of the organization. A lot of this is right out of the statute. I don't know if there's any comments or concerns about that. I can only see a couple people at a time, so if I would just say just butt in, unmute yourself and start talking. So because I won't be able to call on people very easily. So hearing nothing, we can always go back if I go too fast. So don't hesitate to interrupt me. Article 2, definitions. Again, this stuff comes it's just pro forma. You're the board. You got to follow the Open Meetings Law and the Open Records Act. And after we get through the bylaws, I've got brief presentations for you all on both of those statutes. Article 3, powers and duties. Again, this comes largely right out of the statute. You need to develop these 2 codes. If you want to keep scrolling down, Adam, the statute is fairly prescriptive on how you do that. And really, I just took the language from the statute, put it in a way that would work in bylaws. And that's what you see here. Article 4, members. You're seeing a pattern here. Again, this comes right out of the statute, which is very prescriptive on who becomes a member. And I counted probably 3 or 4 times and had Adam double check my math a few times, because there's a lot of people referred to in different ways. But the following 11 members are selected by CEO, and again, right out of the statute. And if you want to keep going down, the following members are appointed, following 10 members appointed by DOLA. And then there's specific requirements for certain members of the board. Again, right out of the statute. Section 2 terms. This is one that might be worth chatting about for a second. Often there'd be a 1 or 2 or 3 or some kind of year term limit on board membership. Here, because you've got to get all your work done in 2.5 years, Adam and I agreed that probably wasn't appropriate here, and that you all are on here for the duration. I'll just highlight that this is sort of standard board language. Regular attendance and participation are vital. Please attend. Please let us know if you're not going to attend. Please don't resign. But if you do, here's how you can. We included a second. This is again sort of how you write bylaws, that you need to think of every contingency, even if it's unlikely or unwanted. There's a section on removal.
Hey, David,
Report.
this is Elizabeth. Can I ask a quick question just
Sure,
about your attendance section?
Sure, yeah.
If folks are not able to attend, do you prefer that we provide a sub or we assign a proxy? What's your policy there?
I don't have a preference. I'd ask Adam and Will what you all think.
Yeah, Will, I don't know if you have any thoughts, but I can just start really quick. And if you have anything to follow up on, feel free. I think so. We determined for if there are any votes that are required on code elements that you cannot have a proxy. You are your vote. And if you do not attend, someone cannot vote in your stead.
And let me
However,
follow
I
up on
think,
that a little bit too, Adam, and that the statute's very specific that a large amount of people need to agree, right? I think it's a 2/3 majority.
Yeah.
So, on voting day, we really do need everyone here.
Yeah.
If it's a working session, you can be more flexible. I'll turn it back over to you. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say too. I think is, if we're just having discussions and there's someone you feel, represents a similar perspective as yours to be involved in discussions, I don't think we have any concerns about that person participating. I don't know if Will has any opinion on that, but certainly for the voting, you need to be here to vote, or your position will not have a vote on that element. Will, do you have any additional thoughts?
The only caveat that I would put in is that the statute does allow Rick and myself to have a designee.
Right.
So that for the two of us, we have the ability to have a designee who I think would be a voting member, but agree that all voting has to happen through the voting members.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions on participation or attendance?
Is the 2/3 majority the members present or a general quorum number?
It's a 2/3. So we'll get to that. It's in the bylaws. It comes out of the statute. But the answer is 2/3 of the members need to agree on each provision of the model codes that you're working with.
Understood. Thank you.
Hey, David, Rick Garcia, just a quick question, kind of going back to the earlier question about voting participation. Is that usual language, or is that something that is derived from the expectations of the statute? I'm just wondering, in the event that someone had a good reason they couldn't make the meeting to vote, it would seem reasonable to have a proxy, to actually execute their vote. That perhaps has already been determined, if it's going to be a yay or a nay. But I'm just kind of curious about that. Is there any room for that to be expanded on, or is that pretty much ironclad?
I don't see it as ironclad. Here's the rule of statutory construction, right? When a statute says that the executive directors may have a proxy, but is silent on anyone else having a proxy, a court's going to interpret that probably to mean that in the lack of that specificity for the other members, it doesn't exist. Now, if that's just a rule of construction. It's not set in stone. And if the bylaws want to take another approach, I think that's probably defensible too. That's something for you all to work out. And it's something worth considering, knowing that the statute requires a 2/3 vote to really get any business done.
Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. I just put that out there. I don't know if there's other opinions about it, but I thought I would just raise it.
When we get down to the voting section, maybe we can talk about it there, but it's something to keep in mind. Will, you want to add something?
I'll wait till we're at the voting section.
Okay. Removal, that's sort of standard language. Representing the board, this is something I'd like to highlight. You all,
David, can you talk a little bit more about Section 6 and representing the board? And
that's what I was going to get into.
Yeah, just acknowledging that and some of us in our everyday roles probably have are in positions to, for example, testify at Air Quality Commission hearings on related matters. And so if you could just provide some clarity around this one, that would be great.
Absolutely, yes. So as it says, no individual member can speak on behalf of the board. However, you're all always free to speak on your own behalf and you're as a, you know, in your, wearing your other hat you might have and your other professional capacity as a citizen of the state of Colorado, you can always speak about, you know, what the board's doing in those capacities. But what you can't do is you can't state that you're speaking on behalf of the board or speaking for the board. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And then there's the last sentence here obviously says, you know, if the board does need someone to speak on behalf of the board, then they can select someone to do that. Section, I'm sorry, Article 5 on officers. Now this is a section that is regular board kind of language. It's not from the statute. So I think I thought and Adam agreed that in order for a board to function, you kind of need a leader to just make things happen. That leader is the first among equals and wouldn't have any special power other than ensuring that board meetings flow and operate. But I think I jumped ahead. Executive committee, that is in the statute. The executive committee is comprised of people specifically named in statute. And when we get down to voting, you'll see the ramifications of that.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we are still working on that. We have 3 that are statutorily required. So Will, Rick, and Brad are our 3 of the 5 that are required. There is no choice in the matter. And then the other 2 must be selected from the local government representatives, either the counties or the municipalities. So by the next meeting, we will have that executive committee settled and we will be able to vote on officers at that time.
So I apologize. I jumped ahead. Officers would be the next section, and officers essentially is the chair and the vice chair. That would be the person or the person's replacement if that person can't attend, who just kind of make the meeting operate and works with Adam to set the agenda. And as I said, the first among equals for administrative purposes, not having any special substantive power.
Kristen, did you have a question?
Yeah, who's responsible for recording the minutes of these meetings? Being that they're broadcast, there is certainly a public record, but just curious about that, if there's no secretary.
Great question. No secretary. So for now, we've invited Casey, one of our paralegals at the Attorney General's office. She will be taking minutes until, and then I'll let Adam finish the rest of my thought.
Yeah, so we are working on getting a facilitator in place for the board. Just the timing of, you know, getting that to start and, you know, realizing the deadlines that we are under to try to get the first of the 2 model codes developed. We decided it was important to get moving as quickly as we could, even, you know, before we were able to get a facilitator in place, but we are working on that. And then when we have that person in place, they will be in charge of a lot of the administrative tasks, such as scheduling minutes and whatnot. But Casey has been very gracious to agree to help us out until that time.
Thank you.
Great question. Next, chairperson, these are standard chairperson duties. Sure, you know, essentially work with Adam to make sure things are flowing smoothly, and work with Will and Rick to make sure that the board is accomplishing its statutory obligations. These are how elections will work when the time comes. Again, pretty standard board stuff in the COVID and post-COVID world. We've going to be doing a lot of things online that previously maybe would have happened in person.
And my apologies, I'm actually looking at the slightly older version, David. My apologies. So this in the actual bylaws, let me hold on one second. There was one change we made.
So this should say coordinating with the director of CEO or the director's designee and the director of DOLA or the director of designee. I think
I was going to say we previously made sure that both both directors would be consulted, as the statute does require, that both have a role in ensuring that the board is able to carry out its work appropriately. So my
Just to be clear,
apologies.
the version you're about to bring up is the version you circulated.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, my apologies on that.
Let's see. Are we down? Can you scroll up just a tiny bit so that we can see that change? There we go. Right.
Yeah, I previously said
CEO.
CEO here. Now
Right.
it says CEO and Ola.
Right. Thank you, Adam, for catching that. Okay, meetings. We were thinking monthly. We were thinking every other week. We settled on at a minimum monthly as the language, knowing that there's a lot to be done in a short amount of time, and that more meetings may be necessary, but we didn't want to enshrine that in the bylaws. That was our thinking there.
Hey, David, one question on that. But after June 1st, there may be a period of time between the end of the initial work of the board and then the period where the 2024 IAC.
Did you lose me or did we lose Will? Oh, looks like
to have this at a minimum monthly during that period.
Well, you froze for a minute, but I think I can summarize your comment, which was there might be a period of time where we don't need monthly meetings after June 1st of 2023. I think that makes sense. It still might be better to have the bylaws say monthly, and then we can cancel the meetings as necessary. And I'm happy to put in something more specific in here if anyone thinks that's necessary. But from just a ease of understanding standpoint, I think we settled on this. Does anyone else have any thoughts about that? Or Will, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I meeting just didn't want to scare people that it's monthly meetings forever, since it's probably a period where we won't need them.
Right.
Hey, David, on that point, it's Rick Garcia.
Yeah.
Who would have the authority to cancel meetings? Would that be the executive committee?
The way it's written now, any meeting may be canceled by the chairperson or the majority of the members 3 working days prior to such meeting, after consulting with the director, with you and Will.
All right, there it is. Okay, great. I could have read that. All right, thanks.
Yep, no problem. So it means these bylaws assume that we've got a collegial working relationship here, and that the chairperson and you all agree that there's no need for a meeting for a period of time. This is standard open meeting stuff. Notice of meetings republished. Open meetings law. This is something that I will give you a quick background on after this. Quorum is a kind of an interesting thing for you all because the statute is so prescriptive on how official decisions get made. That said, there could be a meeting where only 11 of you are there and you still really need to get something done, and you wouldn't be allowed to vote on anything or add anything, any language to a model code, but you could conceivably have a working meeting. That was my thought. Will, Rick, the rest of you, if you think that just doesn't jive with the prescriptive nature of the decision-making, 2/3 decision-making in the statute, then certainly I think that it's worth discussing. Do you think a meeting could happen with only 11 members? Does that seem reasonable? What you're doing is trying to strike a balance between, obviously, striking a balance between being able to get work done and not totally undermining the purpose of the board with having enough people there to get the work done. So we settled on 11.
Well, my quick input, that's seems to make sense. We obviously want to get work done, and if we can't get 2/3, I guess we won't be making changes to the code, but at least we'd be able to convene a meeting.
Yeah. That was our thought.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. More sort of standard board stuff. We're gonna try to keep within the spirit of Robert's rules, but we're not gonna bind ourselves to them.
Hey, David, it's Elizabeth again.
Yes.
If I could just back up to the frequency of meetings and schedulings of meetings.
Sure.
I don't think this is necessarily a bylaw question, but what is the policy for scheduling meetings? Are we going to have that schedule, months ahead of time so we can plan around it, or is this something that we're going to be kind of doing the meeting poll on a more regular basis?
I'd like to avoid the meeting poll. I'll leave the answer up to Adam. That's not a legal question. It's a how do you all function question. I'll leave it up to Adam. I will say, hopefully we can find a time and stick with it, because I know how hard it was, and how hard it is to do a meeting poll with 25 people. But go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, so I think for the next meeting, we will probably have to unfortunately muddle through the challenge of getting everyone coordinated schedule. When we have the facilitator, we expect that they will be able to set a more long-term schedule for what we're going to be looking at, so that we will have some consistency across and some certainly forehand knowledge so that you're able to plan around that. I will say, and we can talk about this a little bit towards the end of the meeting as well again, but we are going to try to have the next meeting certainly planned at least 2 weeks in advance, so that everyone can have that flexibility with their schedule. But then going forward, once we have the facilitator in place, the goal is to have a longer more future looking schedule planned out.
So for the notice of meeting section here, where it says the notice is going to be at least 24 hours prior to the meeting, what is the policy of how soon in advance that we will be able to plan? I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody here could plan for or clear their schedule with 24 hours notice, but we have 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
So the expectation for the next meeting is I am hoping basically right after we're done with this meeting to get planning the next one for mid-November. So the expectation is it would be at least 2 or 3 weeks of notice, and then hopefully potentially as much as months of notice once we have that longer term schedule in place. But I think the bylaws, it's just requiring 24 hours, but certainly the goal is to not have it take 24 hours or, be much more in advance than 24 hours.
Great, thank you.
And let me follow up just for one moment. That 24 hours notice, I think really is for members of the public to make sure that they are notified, balancing the need to notify them with the need for you all to be able to do your job, and maybe there'd be a 2 weeks notice at some point, or maybe there need to be an emergency meeting at some point. We don't want to say we're going to give the public 2 weeks notice or a month's notice all the time, because that could undermine your ability to meet quickly if necessary, right? So this statement in here, notice of meetings, is more for the public, less for you. I think it's in everyone's best interest if we start scheduling regular meetings as soon as possible, so that you can all plan around it.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Robert's Rules
A
of
quick
Order.
question, David. I apologize. You may have said this. Is there a plan to have all of these virtual?
I'll let Adam answer that question.
Yes, I believe we did put in here that they will all be virtual.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I think in this day and age, and knowing that you're all spread around the state, that probably, and we're going to need to meet pretty frequently. I think that makes the most sense too. So.
Yeah, it just precludes any questions I might have had about open meetings in a in-person setting. So
right.
I'm definitely advocate for the virtual, recognizing my many colleagues across the state. So
great. Okay. That said, executive session from time to time you may need to go into executive session to receive legal advice or to talk about some other statutorily provided for reason for going into executive session. I'm not sure if that's really the case with this board. Generally with boards, it happens now and then. Just thinking about the substance of what you're all doing, I don't know that that's really applicable, but nonetheless, there's a provision in here for you to go into executive session if need be and if allowed by law.
This is Tim Pate. I've got a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
On that last sentence where it says must be approved by a majority vote, would that be a majority vote of just the quorum or let's say you go back to if we had 11 or 12 members, it'd be a majority there. But what if there was a split vote there? Let's say if you had 12 members, would that go to executive board?
That's a great question. The answer is yes, it'd be a majority vote of the quorum present. And if it was split, under the way this is written now, you would not be able to go into executive session. Right? You need 50% plus one.
Thank you.
And again, this isn't set in stone. This is our opportunity to discuss that. People think that's unworkable for some reason. We can talk about something else, but that's the way it's currently written. General rules for voting. This is all pretty standard language in the post-COVID world. We're not going to be all in person probably ever. So there'll be the chair will, I assume, call for a vote and call for yeas and nays. Now this next section specifically comes from the statute where there are specific requirements for approval of elements of model codes. It says 2/3 of the members of the board must approve each element of a model code. So that specific task does have more prescriptive requirements in law than general board business. C is other sort of just standard board language. Other formal action, I'm not sure what other formal action you all would need, but in the case that there is something, we included this in here.
And David, I just wanted to make sure no one has any questions about, what percentages or anything, or what ratios of the board has to vote for various things, because there are a lot of timing deadlines. There are a lot of, different ratios of the board versus the executive committee. So I just wanted to give everyone an extra minute in case they have any questions.
Yeah,
just because there are some very, very specific requirements.
Right. That's a great point, Adam. And not only are there specific requirements, these are specific requirements about, why we're all, the tasks that we're all here to do, right? So this might be maybe some of the most important couple sentences of this whole thing. It says how you're going to do what you're constituted to do.
And just to make clear, this is not, as David said, this is statute, so we can't change this, but if anyone has questions on it, it's something that now might be a good opportunity for clarity.
And this language about the executive committee having this power should 2/3 of the broader group not come to an agreement. That's also right out of the statute. But that said, please read it and ask any questions you have about it, because this is how you're going to function. And it's in the statute. And it's important that you understand.
This is Tim Pate again.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning behind that? I guess if I'm reading that correctly, the delay. So if the didn't get voted by May 15, 23, then you got until February 1st, 25. So that's quite a delay in terms of getting the executive committee, I guess, to do that final vote. Is that how I'm reading that?
So
not quite. It's two separate. Sorry, let me just jump in real quick. Yeah, there's two separate things here. There's the second paragraph I think you're talking about, Tim. That relates to there's the two obligations of the board. The first obligation is in the first two sentences. I'm sorry, the first sentence. So if 2/3 of the board can't agree on an element of the model electric ready and solar ready code by April 1st, then the executive committee will decide on it by May 15th. Then you jump down to task number 2, right? If 2/3 of the board can't agree on an element of the low energy and carbon code by February 2025, then the executive committee will decide on it by March 15th, 2025. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, David, Rick Arsan.
Yep.
Hey, let me go back up to the general rules for voting.
Great, yes.
I see the sentence that says no proxy or absentee voting shall be allowed.
Right, thanks for highlighting that. This is what I was kicking that previous conversation down to, so go ahead.
And that's clearly out of the statute?
Scroll up, I don't believe so. Yeah, no, that's not out of the statute.
Oh, okay.
That's just based on other bylaws I've written. If you have a different, if anyone thinks it should be different, then now's the time to speak up about it.
Well, let me ask, the following sentence says, in limited circumstances, a vote by email, phone, or similar method may occur. Now, is that meaning that someone can send in a vote via email or otherwise?
Probably not. I think the purpose of that sentence is if the board needs to vote on something and you're not in a regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Again, that's not going to happen, right?
All right.
Because you need to be making your meeting. You need to be making your meeting.
I'm just curious if others have a similar opinion. I mean,
I was similarly confused.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to, just because of the open meetings law requirements, I would not be opposed to deleting that sentence. In limited circumstances, a vote by email, phone, or other similar methods can occur. Because I think you need to be making decisions in public. Now, I can think of a couple situations in the past representing boards where it was appropriate to make a decision by email, and it was teed up in an open meeting, and everyone in the open meeting agreed they were going to, take it back and think about it for a few days and then vote on it, right? And then that vote becomes a public record, and the discussion has already happened in public, so it's possible. Now, is that something that is a good idea? Probably not. Is it something you're going to need to do? I don't know, but like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to deleting that.
I would suggest leaving it in just to, maximize our flexibility in the off chance that a circumstance came up where we needed to do that.
I think that's why I put it in there, Will, just to keep the utmost flexibility.
Again, David, that reads to me that I get that would have to be orchestrated and well established, that all members of this group would know this in advance, that option exists if that was a direction that was chosen to go down for a vote. But that seems to me to also mean that someone can still exercise a vote without being in an open meeting. And is that what we're trying to avoid based on what I just heard you say?
I think the purpose of this would be for a vote, not one member's vote, to be able to occur by email, but the board may vote for potentially on something by email. It's not an opportunity for one member for 20 people in a meeting to vote and then have someone else shoot their email vote in. That's not the intention. I think the intention is for the board might decide in a meeting, we can't vote on this now. We're not meeting again for another 2 weeks. We're going to need to vote on it between now and 2 weeks from now for whatever reason. We'll conduct that vote by email and we'll reflect that vote in minutes.
All right. Well, so can that language be then maybe clarified a bit more? Because that may mean something different to different people.
Sure.
How about that?
That's much better.
Yep, I think that
okay.
Does that address your?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Great. And then because this is going to be the version that you all vote on, I think, Adam, let me point out, it looks like there's an extra space between the word may.
Yeah, it's because I converted the PDF into the Word Google Doc. So there's some weird spaces, but the content should all be the same.
Okay.
So I will fix the spacing at a different time.
Okay. Great conversation. Thanks for bringing that up, everyone.
This is Tim Pate. So with the situation where it says the vote could be done by email, phone, or similar method, my thought would be an email, because then you have something in writing. I always talk to my staff about doing discussions, making decisions based on phone conversations. Whereas it's difficult, for open records, in this case, open meetings. But if you had an email that you could have as part of the record, just my thought.
I don't think that's wrong. Again, we're straddling the line and balancing the interests of flexibility versus best practices. And again, I don't even see this sentence coming into play, but if it does, you might want to consider giving yourself the utmost flexibility.
Thank you.
Because at the end of the day, the reality is any decision by the board would have to be recorded anyway.
It would be recorded, yes.
Yeah.
The next sentence captures that thought.
Yep. Perfect.
It feels appropriate to give ourselves the wiggle room to do that, especially as you said, that scheduling so many people. And if we can't meet quorum with a meeting, we may find our own hands and able to be effective.
Now, the next paragraph is a little bit old school because it assumes that regular meetings are in person, and you know that that's not how it's going to happen here. Conference calls also are a relic.
So David, I guess this sentence, given that everything we're doing is virtual, is that even necessary?
Reading this with these past 10-minute conversation, I would suggest deleting everything except the first sentence of that paragraph.
So delete this entire thing.
That's what I'm putting on the table. I'm not strongly advocating for that, but I think it's worth thinking about.
I certainly support eliminating it. I think it just generates confusion.
What it's there for, thanks for that comment. What it's there for is, again, to allow flexibility. That said, I think we're already operating under a really flexible environment. We can schedule emergency meetings when necessary. We're going to be meeting pretty often anyway. I represent a board that meets every 3 months, and once in a while, we need to have an emergency meeting just to vote on something. That's not going to be the case for you all. So,
are there any objections to taking that out?
No objection.
Okay. So David, I guess hearing none, I'm going to take it out.
I think that's
unless
great.
Someone speaks up.
I think that's great.
And I'm just going to move this back to be part of the previous paragraph.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, and the reality is that paragraph really addresses that issue anyway, especially the way you rewritten that second sentence.
Yeah, with that second sentence there. Yeah. Great. All right, any other thoughts about voting or this specific statutory voting language in B, so A or B here?
And so we need 14, right? That's the right math.
That's 14, that's the math, yes.
I think the question might be still out there as to whether we could have a proxy attend the meeting in our place if for some reason we were unable to.
Thanks for bringing us back to that, yes. So we had punted on that until we got to here, and then I forgot to bring it back up. So as this is currently written, and this is not a statutory requirement, it's just how other boards that are represented have done it. Definitely doesn't need to be that way. It's up to you all. We could change that second sentence to say proxy voting is allowed.
I would
Or
tend
whatever you-
towards not supporting a proxy vote. I think there was a lot of deliberation to selecting the committee based on expertise, and I think that inserting a proxy, whether they have expertise or not, might raise into question or create an opportunity for challenge. I would just be concerned about that.
Totally agree with that statement.
I would also agree. I think the appointments were pretty deliberate, and I think they probably ought to be kept that way.
Let me just highlight that the executive directors have the ability to name an alternate. So so that one applied. This sentence doesn't apply to that, right? It applies to the balance of the board. Just wanted to highlight that.
We also have the catch-all that the executive committee can affect a vote if for some reason we weren't able to get a full contingent available to vote. They can still vote the will, even if the 2/3 wasn't fully met. So I do think that there's enough of a backstop here that we should err on the side of being more cautious.
Does anyone disagree with sort of the results of this conversation?
Hey, Dave, it's Rick Garcia. I
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear other opinions, and I don't particularly have a strong desire. I just know that, having, strict rules sometimes do bind you to, what the rule is. And, if we can't get the right number, we're going to be at at stagnation. So I only raised it for that reason. But you said something, David, about the executive directors have the ability to appoint alternates. You didn't mean in the event of someone couldn't be present to vote.
So this is from memory. I don't have it right in front of me. My understanding was, and pull up the statute, that anywhere where it says the executive director in the statute, it says or designee, I believe.
Oh yeah,
It's just for yourself. Yeah, it's just for yourself.
Yeah. I was thinking you meant beyond just ourselves.
No.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I was clear about what you were saying. All right, thank you.
So again, if anyone disagrees with this no proxy or absentee voting shall be allowed, please speak up now, because otherwise we'll move on, and this will be the version that you'll all be voting on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, obviously, I'm not a voting member. Rick's present. But I really agree with what Carolyn said. I mean, I agree with Rick. You don't want to be too stringent and handcuff yourself. But with regard to the voting and the decisions made by this board, which some people may not like what those decisions ultimately are, and may challenge it, they would probably attack how the voting occurred, right? And so if you could do it as strictly as possible and adhere as closely as possible to what was laid out in the statute, I think it's the safest course. And the fact that only 2 positions were identified as having a designee, and that's Rick and Will, and everything else was silent, and the fact that you're appointing specific people, Rick and Will, to those positions, I think it's smart just to make sure that those specific people are the ones voting and not anybody on their behalf. Just my thoughts.
That's a good thought, Mo. All right, we can always come back up to this, but for now, just in the interest of time, maybe we should keep scrolling down, Adam. think we
Did we
talked
already do
about.
formal actions?
I think we did. I think my comment was I can't imagine what that would refer to, but you just want to have the ability to do that if you need to. Minutes, as we talked about, AGO will take minutes until you all hire a facilitator who hopefully will take over that role. Open Records Act, again, I'll be giving a presentation on that shortly. You've got to comply with it. Fiduciary duties. You all have a fiduciary duty to the public. There's a elaborate sort of conflicts of interest section in here. I won't bore everyone by reading it, but just know that it's in here. And if you have any questions about it, now's kind of the time to ask it.
Hi, David. It's Mary Weiner with Holy Cross Energy.
Hi.
We're an electric only utility, and I'm representing a utility, electric or gas. So if there happens to be a vote that could affect gas, shall I abstain from it? What's your what should I do in that case?
I don't think you should abstain. I mean, as is often the case with boards like this, you've been selected to the board in part because of your interest, right, and your expertise. I wouldn't recommend abstaining unless someone really thinks that the conflict of interest is something that they can't manage, right? And if Adam, if you scroll down a little, I think there's it talks about conflicts of interest, perceived conflicts of interest. You're required to bring it up and to disclose it. And if you think you can't do you can't do justice to your different interests, definitely speak up. But again, the reason you're selected for this board is because of your expertise and because of your other interests.
Great, thank you.
And is it, do I have it correct that you can disclose a conflict of interest? It doesn't mean you have to recuse. I'm thinking of an instance of, somebody that's with the state office architect on our government affairs committee, for instance, and she, pretty much at every meeting just says, I'm here on behalf of myself, not the state architect's office. So you can disclose that, but not have to recuse, I believe.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks for pointing that out.
David, a question, if I may.
Sure.
If the board, if 3 months from now, clearly something in these bylaws is preventing the board from doing something they need to do, can they go change it later?
Absolutely. These are your bylaws. They govern how you will operate, and you are agreeing to them. So what you have the ability to agree to, you have the ability to amend. Absolutely. That said, 2/3 to 3/4 of these bylaws come out of the statute, right? So a lot of things that statement doesn't apply. To this, it does apply. I keep scrolling out. Again, I think because the statute is so clear that your major decisions need a 2/3 vote, I think the bar for recusing yourself from a decision has to be considered to be very, very high.
And I assume, David, if a board member had a question or concern about potentially having to recuse, they could reach out to Adam, have that conversation, and if he needed to bring an attorney, he would reach out to you or somebody else.
Absolutely.
Have that discussion with that board member. Perfect. Thanks.
That's exactly right. Thanks, man. So we are now, I think, at the very bottom with the amendments that we came up with during this great conversation. I guess it's my recommendation that you all vote to adopt these bylaws. So because we don't have a chair yet, I think Adam would be in charge of that. So go ahead, Adam.
Sure. I was going to just say, do I need to fix, like from a legal perspective, do I need to go like fix all the spacing in the other Google Doc in order for them to approve it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, they can approve it subject to you fixing the, I mean, the motion to approve the minutes can be subject to Adam making the conversion, the non-substantive edits to fix any problems with pagination or spacing in the conversion between Google Drive and Word.
Okay. I would just ask, does anyone have any further questions, any objections to anything in here? Because if no one has objections, it might just be easiest to just do a voice vote rather than going down the line.
This is Tim Pate. Could we please go back to the beginning and just scroll through again? We made a number of changes. I know we don't want to take another month or 3 weeks to vote on it. Just might be real helpful just to take one quick look, please.
Just let me make sure I have the correct Google Doc open. So we have the one with all the changes. Okay, so at this, I'm going to change this to be today. And if anyone wants me to stop scrolling, please say so.
And I'll just point out, I don't think there's any changes yet that we made today. That's an odd one. Those all that A, B, C, and D should each see under officers, A, B, C, and D should be set out the way they are.
That's weird.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know why the spacing is weird, but I'll fix that.
Okay.
No one ever praised Google Docs for its editing capacity.
No.
That is for sure.
That's odd right there.
I'll fix that one too with later formatting
Okay,
wise.
that's fine. I'm constructing a suggested motion in my head that will
Okay.
make this work.
I think if I recall, this is the pretty much the major substantive change we made. So,
And also deleting a bunch of stuff.
and deleting the paragraph after this sentence.
Yep.
Okay, that would be the end.
Thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. And so I put in the chat a potential motion that I think will work for us. If someone wants to make that motion or something like it, that would be welcome. And then we'll be able to someone can second it and then vote, and we'll have all of that recorded in the meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Do they need to actually say those words, David?
I think it would be helpful because I'm not sure that this chat will be preserved.
I move to adopt the bylaws as amended today, subject to the non-substantive formatting edits that Adam will make to fix the conversion form Word to Google Docs.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, noes?
And then go ahead, Adam, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think we have unanimous support, so they should be adopted.
I think that's right. And I found that it's going to be a lot easier for Casey if we can just explicitly identify the name of the person who moved and the name of the person who seconded, so that he's not stuck listening to a recording trying to match voices.
It's Kristen who made the motion, and I don't know who seconded.
It was Kevin Hieronymus that seconded.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Casey, hopefully that'll make your day easier today. Great job. Thank you, everyone. Great conversation.
Okay, so I guess I will. Great, thank you all for that. So now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to skip the election of officers, which is good because we just blew through that time anyway. So we are going to move now to David's presentation on Cora and the public meetings overview, which he will share his screen for.
Great. Thank you. Let me start. Let's talk first about open meetings. Hopefully you can all see that. And let's move. Control F5. No, but on my computer that doesn't work. So you're
Just
seeing-
go to the bottom of the PowerPoint. There should be a button there that's like the far right. No, of the screen, of your
Oh.
screen.
That's where you all are hiding.
Yeah, there's one of the buttons along the bottom there that should allow you to present.
Yes. Reading
Next to that
view,
one.
slide view, slide view.
Slide view. No, then the one on the far right. That
Slideshow.
one.
There
Yes,
it is.
that's
Great,
the
thank
one.
you all. Back at the top, thanks, Adam. Okay, so let me preface this all by saying that this PowerPoint and the following PowerPoint usually take over an hour. I'm going to try to give it to you in 10 minutes. So I'm going to be breezing through it. And please stop me if you have any questions. But otherwise, I'm going to be moving pretty fast. And really, the purpose of this is so that you all know that these things exist, not so that you become legal experts in open meetings laws and CORA. For the most part, that's going to be Adam's and my job to make sure that we're complying with this stuff. We just want you to know that it's out there and to have it,
And-
somewhere in the back of your head.
And just to add to that, David, if anyone ever has a question or a thought that something that they may be doing or may be holding is subject to CORA, please just ask. It's better to ask than assume.
Yeah. And you all make it for it. I will warn you of that. But let's start with the open meetings law, which I think is something that we can all agree is probably a good thing. The purpose of the open meetings law is to afford the public access to what its representatives are doing, right? So give the citizens the opportunity to know issues of public importance and participate and be aware of decision-making processes. A meeting is super broadly defined as any kind of gathering convened to discuss public business. It's really anything. And more specifically, it's every time two or more of you all meet and talk about board business. So a duly noticed meeting like the one we're in today, absolutely that's a meeting. I think we all know that. That's understood. That's why we're going to notice meetings. But you are on a 2-hour car drive to the ski resort with your buddy who's also a member of the board, and board business comes up. That is a meeting of the board subject to the open meetings law, and you cannot discuss board business. You're in the elevator coming down from something totally unrelated with another member of the board, and you want to talk about a provision of the model energy code. Please do not. That any conversation you have with another member of the board constitutes a public meeting. And if there's one takeaway from this slide deck that you have, I think that's the biggest one, is you can absolutely find yourself in an unintentional board meeting. You really need to have that light go off in your head. That's the time that Adam and I aren't going to be there to remind you, right? You're going to have to remind yourself that you can't be talking about board business with other board members. Mo, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you, David. The one that commonly trips people up in this day and age of technology and emails is a reply all, right? So
Absolutely.
if Adam sends something out that has all of your emails identified in such a way where you can simply reply all, avoid the temptation to do so. Just reply to Adam if you can. That would help everybody.
And I'm gonna hopefully preempt that problem by sending you emails that will not allow you to reply all.
Yes.
Great point. That's another one of those unanticipated quote unquote meetings that meet this definition. Carolyn.
So I'm familiar with several people on this board, all of whom have other code conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And so just wanting to be clear, it would not necessarily be in the context of the state board's business, but is of the same subject matter. And just wondering the degree to which we should be concerned about that, or what you would like us to do about that.
So I'd be concerned about it to a very high degree, but I think you can mitigate it, right? And I think the way you mitigate it is just always be really clear about what hat you're wearing and in what context you're talking about this. And then also, if it's something that specifically bears on something that this board needs to decide, I would explicitly say, hey guys, this specifically relates to something that the Model Energy Code board needs to decide. And, you know, to the extent we talk about it now, we're not talking about it for those purposes, right? And hopefully that you won't need to talk about it. That'd be even better. Great questions. I think I already talked about this. 2 more members.
Hey, David, I think Kevin had a question that he
Oh,
wanted
sorry, I
to
didn't
ask.
see that pop up. Again, I only see 4 people on my screen now, and one of them is me. So if you want to ask something, just please interrupt me. Go ahead.
Oh, sure. And I just threw it in the, I think it's a quick confirmation. It's acceptable to share information about the progress of the board with non-board members.
Absolutely.
Reporting to peers and things. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course. You can talk to non-board board members. Again, don't forget, don't represent, you're speaking for the board.
Correct.
You're speaking for you, right? Yes, you can talk to non-board members.
Okay. Thank you.
And you can talk to Adam. You can talk to me. What's proper notice? Again, don't worry about it. Just know that it needs to happen. 24 hours notice. We're going to post it on the website. Date and time of the meeting, location, agenda. Those are the things we're going to agree upon and make public in 24 or at least 24 hours before the meeting. Again, I'm going to whip through this. Quorum. I don't think, again, we already talked about this. It's in your bylaws. You don't need to know about this generally here. For now, CEO will prepare minutes for the meetings. Just so you know, these are open to the public for review. If you do go into executive session, what happens is we record the meeting, and that recording is held for, I believe, 90 days before it's deleted. But a judge, if someone says, I have reason to believe that they talked about something in executive session that statutorily did not belong in executive session, they might go in front of a judge, and the judge is going to listen to what happened in executive session and decide whether that was properly discussed in executive session. So if you do go into executive session, you have to be careful. Here's your caution, Mo. Email discussions between members regarding public business are subject to public inspection. So let's not do that. Executive session now. I think we can freeze to that. I really don't think you're going to be going into executive session here to get legal advice, although maybe you will. Like I already said, you're going to vote to do it. You're going to go into it. Trying to go quickly. Executive session can be used to discuss attorney-client privilege information. If you have a legal question that you think is so sensitive, you don't want the public to hear my answer, you can go to executive session. Then you can only discuss topics in executive session that were announced. If you get the spirit of this thing, it's that all your major business has to be happening in a notice public meeting, right? That's the takeaway. I'm not going to read this one for you. Again, we'll navigate this for you. Just know that there are rules for when you can talk and when you can go into executive session. Here's the same point maybe before that I really want to underline. It's chance meetings, social gatherings. You can all hang out and party to your heart's content. You just can't talk about the business of the board while you do that. There you go. There's a half-hour presentation and 8 minutes. So any questions?
Do you mind sending out a copy of this to everybody?
We will send out a copy of it. Keep in mind, this is attorney-client privilege. So if you choose to divulge it, your attorney-client privilege that you can waive if you share it. So I'd recommend that you don't. But yes, you're welcome to it. I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna pull up the other PowerPoint. Oh, no.
David, you mentioned that a few of us might get Cora at the beginning of the presentation. That sounds really unpleasant. Can you spell out what that means exactly?
Yes. So if I said that, I misspoke, or maybe I spoke too broadly. The board might get Cora, right? You're not going to be individually Cora. And the subject of my next presentation is the Colorado Open Records Act. So hopefully I can get that going. We'll answer all your questions there. Is that a fair way to proceed?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You think in 2.5 years of working online, I'd be smoother at this, but I'm not. There we go. I think I have it open. Cora. Okay, share screen. Cora. There we go. All right. Again, this is a long presentation that I'm going to give to you as quickly as possible. And please, again, just interrupt. I can only see a couple of your faces, so I can't see if your hands are raised. Just cut me right off. All right. CORA is the Colorado Open Records Act. You've probably heard of it. Maybe some of you are already subject to it. But this will be a brief overview for those of you who haven't heard about it in a while or have never been subject to it before. Welcome to the Model Energy Code Board. Now the work that you do is subject to the Colorado Open Records Act, right? It applies to public records. And a public record is most writings made, maintained, or kept by the state or any state agency, which includes the Model Energy Code Board, in this case, state agency or institution. It's just about anything in the public entity's possession. Now, when I say the public entity, I mean Adam pretty much is going to be the keeper of Model Energy Code Board stuff. But if a member of the public asks for email communications, you might send a message out to all of you saying, the Model Energy Code Board has been forwarded, and all the members' emails about board business have been requested. Let me know what you have. And then we'll work with you to collect them and go through them. So while it's the case that most of the stuff will be stuff CEO already has in its possession, stuff that you have in your possession might be subject to FORA. Writings include, and now we're going to get into some more detailed stuff that you don't really need to have memorized. If there's one takeaway from this, it's that your work for the board is subject to the Open Records Act, and if that work is CORA'd, we will work with you to comply with the law. Right? I'll give you now I'm going to breeze through the rest of this thing. You must produce databases in similar formats. So if you've got an Excel spreadsheet that is populated by an online database, you need to disclose that in the same format. We can't make a PDF out of it. If we screw up, the board might be paying the requester's attorney fees. So it's serious stuff. What we won't do is convert searchable documents into non-searchable documents. We must produce searchable documents if they are searchable to us. We don't need to produce the database itself. Now we're getting into the weeds here of computer stuff that I don't totally understand, but basically we turn over documents, files in the version that we hold them. Anyone can request records through CORA. That includes the Denver Post. It includes the person down the street. It includes, someone asked one time, an out-of-state entity. Yes, an out-of-state entity can request documents through CORA. Pretty much anyone for any purpose can request documents through CORA.
David?
Yes, go ahead.
This is, I can just hop in for 1 second. It may be worth reminding folks that typically we have construed an email saying from a member of the public or even the media saying, could you please share the following document with me, to be a CORA request, and that they should notify Adam or you if they are asked for document production. Even if it's benign. We have typically treated it that way. And if I'm incorrect, please be correct.
Nope, that's a great point. Thanks, Keith. Typically, I would imagine CEO is going to be receiving the core request, or maybe DOLA. Please give us all the documents related to such and such work of the Model Energy Board. That said, one of you might get an email requesting documents related to the Model Energy Board. In that case, refer it to Adam and me, and to Adam immediately, and Adam will bring me in. And the reason why immediately is because you'll see under the state law, there's a quick 3-day turnaround. Unlike the federal FOIA, which it seems like they can take as long as they want. In Colorado, we've got 3 days to respond. And Keith's absolutely right. Something just last week, we got a request, an email that said, I'd hate to go through all the complications of a core request, but would you please get me X, Y, and Z? We treated that like a core request. But that's how broadly we treat written requests for documents. So if we get one, we're going to deal with it ASAP. If you get one, please refer to Adam ASAP immediately. Under core, the agency has 3 days to respond. There can be penalties if we don't. We don't need to create new records to respond to a core request. I think that's important. If someone says, please answer this question, that's not a core request. A core request is, please give me documents that you have, and then describe those documents. And if we don't have them, we don't have them. We don't need to make them. Right? When can we say no? We can say no. Obviously, non-responsive records. Please give me the board's work on such and such a topic. If you have any documents on that. Well, the board's work on some other topic is not responsive, and we don't need to disclose it. There's also reasons that we can, if the record is responsive, that we can withhold it. Again, I'm just going to breeze through this because it's not for you to worry about. Just know this is out there. We'll worry about it when the time comes. Not public records. A work product prepared for an elected official is excluded from the definition of public records. So if Will and I are working on a memo to the governor, that is not something that is a work product that we need to disclose should someone ask CEO for a document. Now,
So, David, I guess I have a question related to that. Some of the members of this board are elected officials. I'm assuming their role as a board member supersedes that, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Thanks. Good point, Adam. Let's see. I'm just going to keep going because I know we're short on time. There's exceptions. There's a ton of exceptions in Cora. We'll just talk about a few. Again, don't worry in any one case if an exception applies or doesn't apply. Adam and I will work together and or with you to answer any specific question in any specific circumstance, but just so you know that these are out there. We typically will redact, we can redact email addresses. We must withhold medical, mental, other information like that about people. This is a funny one. We shall withhold personnel files and we shall withhold letters of reference. Trade secrets is an interesting one. Just because something is labeled confidential or trade secret doesn't mean that it is. This is a mixed question of fact or law. So while it might be evidence that something marked confidential or trade secret might be evidence that something is confidential or trade secret, we will have to make that determination on a case-by-case basis. Privileged information can be withheld. So that's deliberative process, attorney-client privilege, attorney work product. Again, don't worry about it. We'll work together as a team to answer any specific question. We just want you to know this stuff is out there. Deliberative process privilege applies to pre-decisional deliberative documents. That may or may not apply to the board. Typically, if we're working on some kind of recommendation and we're working through drafts and eventually we make a decision, that's something that maybe we can withhold under the deliberative process privilege. Attorney-client privilege, obviously, if your attorney gives you legal advice, that is your privilege. You don't need to disclose that legal advice. The client is the holder of the attorney-client privilege, not the attorney. So I can't waive your attorney-client privilege, only you can. Public interest, this is a catch-all. This is never going to apply, but just so you know, it's out there. An agency may deny access to a public record if it's against the public interest to disclose it. This is a once in your career thing that might happen, not a once a year or even once a decade thing that might happen. Nonetheless, it is out there. What's not contrary to the public interest is something that's contrary to your personal interest, right? If you say something embarrassing in an email, and that email concerns board business, someone cores that. The fact that you said something embarrassing in the email does not protect you. So now that you're the member of a board, and many of you probably already know this, but now that you're acting in this role, be careful of what you put in writing. Another exception, we shall withhold documents that federal or state law says we shall protect. All right, what to do if you get a core request? Or what do we do with the documents after a core request is a question we get asked all the time. We just we maintain them like normal. So we destroy them if it's past the retention policy of the organization, or we refile them if it's within the retention policy of the organization. This governor's data privacy guidance came out 2 years ago when I was first developing this presentation, and it got a lot of press and it got a lot of people worried because in some cases it arguably might conflict with CORA. We just want you to know CORA is a statute. The governor's guidance on privacy is governor's guidance, nothing more. So work with us and we will help you navigate any discrepancies between those two authorities. But again, the big picture is any work you do for the board is CORA-able. That's written documents. Written documents include emails. It probably includes texts. Let's not be the test case to find out if it absolutely includes texts. We treat it like it does. Don't be sending texts about board material on your personal phone because you do not want a judge to order you to turn over your personal phone. Like I said, 45-minute presentation in 10 minutes. I breezed through it. I didn't breathe once. Does anyone have any questions?
Just once again, David, is it possible to send this out to everybody too?
Yes, we'll share this with the group. But I would just let you know again, this is your attorney giving you advice. Please keep it closely held.
And great job with both of these. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Anyone have any questions or concerns? Specific questions that I haven't thought to address in my quick breeze through these things? Again, the big takeaway is talk to Adam and me. If CORA comes up to you, and we'll talk to you if CORA comes up to us, and we've got a quick turnaround.
I guess I do have a question. Because I'm working with the local building departments on their building codes simultaneously with being on this board, and I frequently do research across the state or other mountain communities to see what's been done in other areas. If I wanted to reach out to a representative from another community that happens to be on this board, simply to ask them to share with me what's been done in their community, but not to discuss specific board things, but related to energy efficiency codes, where does that fall?
Under that hypothetical, I would say go ahead and do it. Are you talking about reaching out to another member of the board, or just another representative from a community that has a representative on the board?
It could be either. I'm just recognizing names on this board of people who, I've recognized their names but never necessarily spoken with. But it would be a similar request of other people that I have spoken with in the past.
Yeah. I think that's something, it's interesting. This being the first day, I didn't know exactly what kind of your relationships all were, but it seems like your work does overlap, right? So I would just caution you to be really clear about what hat you're wearing when reaching out to somebody on the board. And if there is a board specific action item or board specific conversation, don't have it. Now, if it has to do with your regular life and your regular job, I think that that's fine.
Okay, thank you for the guidance.
If I could expand on that just a little bit, am I right in thinking that because these meetings are open to the public, that if we are wearing our, let's say I'm wearing my Boulder County building official hat and I'm having a discussion with somebody else who also is on the board, but we're talking about stuff that's been openly discussed with the public, can we consider that information public knowledge and not necessarily something that was privy to us as members of this committee?
Right, you do not have a duty of confidentiality to the board or something like that. That's right. If I'm understanding your question correctly,
Yeah.
I mean, this is all, everything we talk about here, unless we're in executive session, it's all public. It's all public.
So even if we're wearing that other hat, we still actually could discuss things that the board has been discussing, even though we're still firmly in our wearing our other hat.
Yes.
Okay.
Now don't have an unintentional model energy code board meeting during your Boulder County meeting, right?
Yeah.
Just beware.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but I do think that it's a real issue. I mean, many of us are working in overlapping areas here, and so the collaborations are already ongoing in some cases.
I think it's perfectly fine for you to say in that other meeting, you know what, this sounds more like a conversation we need to be having at our next model energy code board meeting. If it really does involve the work of developing, these two codes that this board needs to adopt. Now, if there's overlapping issues, of course, you can talk about those issues in the other context.
I hear what you're saying, Ron. I'm with David. Just be conservative here. Like somebody says, hey, I missed the last board meeting, right? And even though that was all publicly done and their minutes recorded, I would just avoid giving that person a recap. Just say, you might want to talk to Adam.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking more of the fact that, many of the, I'm working on also developing energy codes within my jurisdiction simultaneous to this effort. And so, these conversations can't help but deeply overlap.
Yeah, and I think you can talk about how much you like, and I don't know the substance enough, but I can tell you, provision X. Provision X really appeals to me. And it appeals to me when I'm a member of the Model Energy Code Board, and it appeals to me when I'm a member of this other organization. You can advocate for that in both venues, right?
Yeah.
Or you can want to learn more about it in both venues, right?
This is Tim Pate. I'm going to go right along with Ron's comment, being the building official in my process that I'm working through now with the 21 code and some strengthening amendments based on the code cohort. So I anticipate having those types of questions come up for me with possibly in the council meeting that I'm going to have coming up. So I respect, I'm glad to hear that input to maybe just refer them to the energy code website and try to defer those questions. That might be a challenge from saying that to my council members, though.
Well, and David, just to clarify for Tim's question, Tim, if you're talking to anyone who's not another member of the board, that's okay. It's only, I think the only time this becomes a challenge is when you're having a private conversation about the board's work with another member of the board.
I guess just to add on to Tim's thing, so both of us are on that code cohort meeting. So the two of us are going to be, right. So there's three of us that are in that same group, also developing recommendations for a highly efficient energy code. So the overlap here is it's real.
Right. I was just also wanting to clarify that if Tim is talking to the Broomfield City Council, none of those members are on the board, and thus there is not a concern from the open meetings perspective, as much as there is potentially with that code cohort discussion.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification.
Any other, like I said, I breezed through an hour and 15 minutes of slides in about 15 minutes. So, and I totally get it. If I made more confusion than I did clarity, so please ask questions.
David Andrew Harris. Does anybody believe there's any current potential conflict by virtue of serving on multiple boards or committees in which there's multiple current members sitting on those? I don't think that had been asked.
I certainly don't know the answer to that question, but before I let someone who probably does know the answer to that question weigh in, let me just tell you, this statute is so prescriptive that, and your work is so prescriptive, and who can be a member of this board is so prescriptive that overlapping, I won't say conflicts, but overlapping interests are almost are going to be a necessity, right? You wouldn't be able to serve on this board if you didn't have some interest in the area of work of this board, separate and apart from the work of the board, right? So with that in mind, maybe Will or someone else can weigh in about whether you anticipate there being any specific conflicts of interest, or Adam.
I mean, I agree with what you said. I mean, I think that it's inevitable when you're assembling a panel of experts on a board, you expect that they are working and knowledgeable of the areas in which they are providing information and expertise and perspective to the board. So I think there are probably opportunities where those things overlap and where those things potentially could be a conflict, but I think that inherently having overlap does not make a conflict, and you just need to, I think it's just up to judgment about, making sure that if these things seem like, if you feel like there's a conflict, that you share that. But I don't think that inherently having multiple roles on different boards or in different engagements makes there a conflict of interest without, something specific happening.
I think that's right. And let me follow up by saying that we all kind of have like a spidey sense, right? And I will say, you can do the wrong thing, get in a lot of trouble, even if your spidey sense doesn't go off. But a lot of times your spidey sense is going to go off if you're wading into waters that feel like they're, it feels like, wow, this is really something that we should be talking about with the Model Energy Code Board in a public meet, in a well-noticed Model Energy Code Board meeting, rather than in this situation right here. So with the caveat that, yeah, you can still screw up even if you don't have a spidey sense. A lot of times, just be aware of doing the right thing and knowing the spirit of these open government rules, and that'll get you a long way. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, David. Does anyone else have any other questions for David on either Cora or public meetings? If sounds like the answer is no, so I guess we will just move to kind of wrapping up. We really appreciate everyone's time today. Look forward to working with all of you. As I mentioned a little bit earlier during the meeting, we will be working to schedule the next meeting very soon, likely for the middle of November, shooting for the middle of November. And so as soon as we have confirmation of availability for both of our directors, we will be sending out much like what I did in the previous time. Hopefully we will actually have multiple options this time instead of just saying yes or no, I'm available for the next meeting. And then the ideal scenario is by, after that point, for the third meeting, that we will have a facilitator in place who will do a more coordinated and hopefully longer term schedule planning into next year. So with that, I open to any final questions before we conclude.
Adam, I have a question, and I wonder if everyone's sort of wondering the same thing, which is, how do you anticipate the work happening here? Do we have drafts of things that we're going to share ahead of time and review them and come ready to talk?
Yeah.
How do you see it functioning?
So I think there needs to be a little bit of discussion too about, step by step about what is going to happen. And, I'm interested in hearing from you all about what this is your board to weigh in on. And so, any feedback, whether, in the next minute or, via email or any kind of other form of communication with me, sending me ideas of what you think is helpful in terms of next steps. From my perspective, what I was thinking might be helpful is, there are a lot of jurisdictions, many of which you represent already, that have done similar codes to what we are proposing, certainly at least in the context of electric ready and solar ready codes. And so, I think it would be a little bit helpful to do some sort of review of some jurisdictions, what some of you have done, what other jurisdictions that aren't represented here have done, potentially even what other states have done. Some states, of course, have a statewide code, and therefore there's a more centralized resource there. But just looking at other examples, seeing if there are commonalities between all of them that might be something that would be representative and effective statewide for Colorado. So that was kind of the approach that I was thinking we might take for at least the next meeting or two, is take, kind of breaking down what some jurisdictions are doing, what other states are doing, and trying to gather some information there, which I am currently working on pulling together a lot of the information from different sources, so we have it all more condensed. But certainly if anyone has any feedback either now or later on about what you think would be helpful, what you think would be best to inform your work, and if there's any information or data or experts or any information that you need that you would like to be provided to you, that is also something that's very helpful for us to know.
This is Tim. I have a quick comment, Adam. Is it possible, kind of going back to the open records, all the information we just received, that say we could send to a clearinghouse, you or however that works, say a copy of, say, an ordinance like Broomfield, we've got an ordinance on the books now for EV, and start to collect that the members would have a chance to review before the next meeting, which could very well kick off that discussion.
Yes. So, we can either figure out some sort of central repository, or you can send it to me and I can compile into, documents or whatever. Because that's kind of what I've already been doing, is looking at some jurisdictions already and compiling them into more, uniform format, so that we're not having to go find out, dig files out of other jurisdictions, websites or whatnot. But anything you would like to share with me, if you all think it would be helpful to kind of have like a central hub that everyone is able to access, like a Google file or a Google folder or something where we can put everything and folks can look in that. I am open to, however, again, this is your board, so whatever you think is most helpful in terms of getting the information you need that will inform your work, I am very interested in doing that.
Could we explore a SharePoint rather than a Google Doc?
Sure.
Because some of us, I think, have security things that make that a little bit more challenging.
Okay. We can definitely consider doing something different.
Sorry,
Why don't we? Oh, go ahead, Keith.
That may be something we want to take up with the consultant once they're on board. They may have access to other technologies that, as the state, we currently don't. So we'll certainly take that back, and that's one of the things that we will check in on with the consultant on. My apologies.
Yeah. And then
sorry, I got Rick off accidentally.
Was someone else going to make a comment, or?
No, I think it was me who was going to make a comment, and I was going to say pretty much exactly what Keith said. So
yeah, so I think at least for the time being, given that the next meeting is likely again to happen without a consultant or facilitator, we may need to just be a little bit creative, just with and perhaps maybe me being the central repository for this situation. If there are things you would like to send or that you would like to have compiled just for this upcoming meeting, please feel free to send that to me, and I'm happy to put that together. And then we can, as Keith said, we can definitely engage with a consultant on the best way to share information moving forward.
Is it safe to say we're likely going to start, just hit the ground running with the electric ready?
So I think we're potentially, it's going to, I'm trying to think a little bit because I think, I mean, again, this is kind of, if you all have a preference of whether we talk electric ready first, or if, we look specifically at solar, or, if anyone has opinions on that, please feel free to share. I think in terms of specific solar readiness, there is a lot more out there. I mean, there's an appendix in the IECC, and then there's residential versus commercial. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can approach this. And so if we want to first talk about residential electrification or residential solar, or I'm very open to whichever you all would prefer to talk about first, but I certainly think at least both on residential and commercial, there is more reference material when it comes to solar ready, perhaps, than there is electric ready. So that seems to me like a logical place to start, but I'm open to feedback on that. And as I said, you do not have to provide me feedback today. If you want to send me an email or anything, just make sure, as Mo said, don't CC the entire board. Just send it to me, please.
If you could aggregate documents sent to you by other board members, such as example, codes being adopted, obviously the language of the codes that we are legislatively directed to consider, and perhaps email all of us in a package, I would find that incredibly useful before the next meeting.
Yes, I can definitely do that. I think just for the sake of administrative, time, and also just the opportunity for you all to review anything I've put together. Ideally, if you can send, like if folks who want to send me anything can not, don't wait until the night before we have a board meeting, just it gives folks more opportunity to actually review what we've pulled together. So, if you can give at least several days in advance of anything you'd like to share. And of course, that will all depend on when the next meeting is, which I'm trying to get scheduled as soon as possible. So hopefully by the end of this week, we will have a scheduled meeting for the middle of November.
Back to your question, just back to your question regarding EV or solar ready to discuss first. I can speak from the local, there's a local committee that I've been working on to kind of establish steps toward electrification. And the first step is EV and solar. And it's just kind of one lumped group of research that we've done. Yeah. So I don't know if, just maybe even prior to the next meeting, if we don't decide on solar or EV first right now, those documents can at least get put into one place so that then we could get either one, and that might help inform that decision.
And we can definitely compile all of the information, and potentially just when we actually have the meeting, we could just discuss certain provisions or certain pieces of these things, because I think as you all know, even better than I do, a lot of these things, you can't really talk about them in a vacuum. They all apply to each other, or they all impact each other, certainly. And so I think that we can have a more holistic overview in terms of documentation, and then actually when we're discussing them, we can maybe specify it down into more specific provisions. All right, and I see we're 7 minutes over time, so if anyone has any further questions, feel free to either ask now or certainly follow up with me afterwards. Any final questions?
I wanted to ask the group, we had talked about sharing those PowerPoints. It seems to me it might be more useful for you all, and also I just feel more comfortable with those PowerPoints. If you get into them, they're all filled with like weird notes to myself. If I just came up with like a one-page FAQ on the Open Records Act and CORA, and that's what we shared for you all, I think that might actually serve my purposes better and serve your purposes better. How does everyone feel about that? Great.
Seems fine.
I see a lot of heads nodding.
Okay, great. That's what I'll do then.
Okay, and then of course, if you have any further questions or something is not addressed in the FAQ, you can always ask me or David directly. And if you ask me, I will ask David. So, okay, any final questions? All right, well, thanks to you all for being here and giving us 8 extra minutes of your time. And as I said, I will be in touch hopefully by the end of this week when it comes to options for scheduling the next meeting mid-November.
Thank you,
Thank
Adam.
you.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank
Adam.
you.
Thank you
Thanks
all.
all.
Adam, do you want to hang out for 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Adam, nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
David, give me 1 minute.
Sure.
And